Just doing a quick sound test just to make sure microphone's working today. microphone works this time. We are here. My name is Sarah Scruggs, and we spend a lot of time shaping the bottom trunk area of the tree, and we're not really going to do a whole lot with the canopy. So if you guys have any questions, everything we're doing today is also pretty applicable to V8 if you're using V8. I am using the Cinema modeler, so things might look a little different between your general user interface and mine, but for the most part you're going to be able to follow along if you're just doing this from scratch. And we're going to go ahead and get started. And I got a couple of storm puns coming in because we do have like a tornado outside apparently, but like it's actually bright and sunny, so we'll see if we crash or not. And there we go. Apparently I'm freezing just a little bit. I'm making today is a camphor tree, or called a Camphor Laurel. And I've got a picture of a little here. We're actually just doing this big guy here. I probably would have spent a little more time adjusting the top of the tree for this one. But we want to focus today on just how to break apart pieces down here with our tiling. And with that in mind, this is a ginormous tree. Obviously a little bit larger than we usually have for VFX. I don't have collision on right now, and so that's why we have so many leaves in here. So ideally we'd be dropping this down a good bit. It's close to 5 million right now, and we would want to put collision on, but for the sake of running our computer and not having it die, I just left it on for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a blank file, and we're going to go ahead and get started building. I've got one started here. If you're starting from scratch, you're going to go File, New. I've got our textures loaded in, or apparently I'm missing my summer texture, and that's okay. And I've got a bark in here. This bark I'm using is it's got a stripe going down, and I got some differentiation in there. That is what we're going to talk about as we split. So right off the bat, I started off with make sure I'm not, I'm missing sort of the conversation apparently. I just literally had like all of your comments load at once. So I'll let Danny answer some of those guys so we can get going in here. I'm basically going to add a trunk tube just so we can shape this and show you from scratch, I guess. We're going to add one in there, and I'm going to do a double trunk for this one. So we're going to go to absolute gen, and we're just going to have to put a 2 in there. Now these guys are going to intersect near the bottom of the tree, and that's okay. You'll kind of see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and put my texture onto the tree just so that we can get a feel for what it looks like. I'm just dragging and dropping that on there. You can also grab material and just go ahead and add it from there. And hi everybody coming in. We are going to go ahead and get our radius kind of the same height. We're going to go to Skin tab, Properties, and just make that exact. I'm going to do, instead of percent apparent, which would be taking from the actual tree circle here, all of my trunk measurements are going to be on the absolute, the randomize button. You won't have anything too crazy down here in the bottom. We are going to go ahead and change the start angle up on these guys. I want them to kind of turn out from each other. And we're going to use the first and last to get them into position. I kind of want them to overlap a little bit, so I'm actually going to push the first and last closer together there. I have sync on these guys. They're into the ground. Might have to do that a little more. It's actually, the tree itself looks like it's sunk. Yeah, that was what that was. The tree entire window for now, and actually sink the branches in. If we do that just a little bit, we just want them underneath the edge. We want these guys to be pretty beefy, I guess so the way to say that. But we're making a very substantial size trunk here. We also want this to be a lot shorter. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And hello, Alex. A little larger. We actually don't want that person in there. And we're going to go ahead and make these a little shorter. And I'm going to go ahead and start my splits at the very bottom. I'm going to just put a 10 in there. There we go. You'll see that as I get shorter right now, I'm getting the end of my branch is getting bigger in the radius. And that is because on the radius skin tab here, I have length compensation in. And it is saying these branches are getting so short that they're adding some length in to the end of the branch. So we really don't want that in on necessarily. We're gonna go ahead and do that, and we're gonna shape this. We're actually gonna max this out so these tubes are relatively the same length. And then we're gonna start shaping these guys. So yes, we do have a seam when you do it this way, this multi-trunk. And we're gonna do our best to hide that. We wanna go ahead and start by adding a little bit of displacement. I have a displacement map loaded on this guy here in my height channel. You can do this in SpeedTree 8 by loading it into the displacement tab. And we just going to push our displacement out. Now we have some nice ridges in here that follow the actual map and give it some shape. We'll also be adding a little bit of fine displacement, but we'll kind of add that in the end as we need it. I'm going to go ahead and flare out the bottom. I'm going to push these up pretty tall, actually, and maybe not pinch them out. And you'll see here where the tree, this branch is cutting into the other. We're going to be adding roots, and so little pieces like that actually end up help make it more dimensional, I feel like, in the end. If that bothers you, then I would split from the bottom and not do this multi-trunk thing. The chopping into each other. You can make some adjustments now and maybe give it a little bit more space up there. There we go. And now we are ready to split. First thing first, I kind of want to take a picture, take a second to look at our segments here. This is the bottom of our cinema tree, and we're going to put a lot more radial segments in order to split these guys off. So we're going to go ahead and add some of those in there. I'm going to the segment tab. And I'm just going to add a couple more in the absolute, and this is our base trunk. We're just going to let it have a lot there, maybe push up the relative as well. You can taper these off, but since I have such a short trunk, I'm not really going to worry about that. I'm also going to add just a few more in the relative. This is a lot, but if you remember, we're working in cinema, so we have our different resolutions here. So we're going to model a high resolution one with a lot of detail. And because this is such a big tree, you're going to be working in the low resolution quite a bit. But this will help us out for adding everything in there. And just seeing people jump in. I was making sure I wasn't missing anything in the chat. But hi, Luciana. And, actually, we don't want a trunk. We want a branch. And we want to add an extension. I can do this in tubes just to show you how you would set it up if you didn't know what you were doing. We're going to go to the generator tab, and we're actually going to put absolute on here, and we're going to tell this one that we want it to now. There's a couple different ways to model these. If you want them all to be on one generator, you can definitely have branches on there, but I like to keep them separate where I am for this shape of this tree. So we're going to go ahead and add some more segments to our extended piece here. We have enough radial segments. We just want a couple more length segments. It's just got a 0.5 in there. 2 relative to the length would probably be enough, but we can go a little more. And we're going to see what that does. We're going to go ahead and these guys are going to be kind of open as well. And these are going to be very, very short pieces. We're going to go ahead and take that length down a little bit. And I'm going to put this back in our standard mode. So we want to make sure we have enough wrapped around the U in order to split off into the next one. So if you were to try to add splits right now and you had an absolute 1, I'm just going to show you this so you know. We're going to go to the skin tab. We're going to go down to the splits and give it 100% of a chance. And it's not going to split right now. It's actually going to tell you you only have 1 U tile and we cannot split this. If you go back to the UV tile and you put an absolute 2, you're going to have 2 splits. What we're going to be doing today I'm going to go back to here. I'm actually going to put a relative of 1 in there. This means that when I randomize the tree, I could have my U wrapping 3 times, or I could have it wrapping 2 times. That 1 there is going to be relative to the height, or whether or not it adds in there. When you get an uneven number in there, say if you have 3 absolute, and right there, that relative 1's saving me, I take that back out, you might have one side split and the other not. As you go up the tree. So right now, and that's great to hear. I'm really, really thankful for all of the positive feedback you guys have been giving about the streams. So thank you. And just to go back a second, the Ponderosa Pine will be a pack available very soon. It will be out when we release V9 because it's a V9 tree. Just kind of wanted to add that in there. We've got a whole lot of new trees coming. Pretty excited about that. And make sure we're running smoothly. Think we're good. All right. So the thing about splits is they all sort of look the same and they're even like this. And we want to really break it up. If we go back to our main tree, we can kind of see we've got a lot of things going on here. Got these side branches that we're going to ignore right now, and I've got one coming off that's a big split, and I just kind of artistically let me decide and choose. But let's go ahead and add our second set, and then we'll start shaping these guys. What we're gonna do is we're gonna copy what we just did and paste it on there. We're actually splitting once more. Copied it on the wrong one. So now we have a little set guy in the middle here, and then these guys as well. And these are set to skin, and these are going to be set to 100% chance to split as well. Now, as you can see, I've got a side with 2 and a side that did not split, and that's from down here at the bottom where I had the UVs set to 3. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, I can definitely try to make it a little easier to understand, but it's basically some simple logic or math, or you can just, wiggle the numbers and see if you get what you like. We've got some new shaping tools in here with splits. If you go to the skin tab now, we have an expand for either side. You can make one side a little larger at the top, and that will help kind of counter what we get there. And I think that's a real fun shape for what we've got going on in this tree. It's just a really thick shape. This is kind of help prevent you from having to go to the skin tab and do a lot of editing here with your profile curve. If you wanted to make the end bigger, it would affect both sides there. So this lets you get some shape pushed one way or the other. Now let's go ahead and just do some shaping in general here to get this where we want it. Going back there, I've got one side pushed a little smaller. I'm gonna spread this out a little bit because we want the tree to actually bend. Here's a good time to add a little bit of gravity on the middle branches so that you can bend them out a little bit. We're gonna maybe turn that down at the top again and kind of pull them out. And we want to add, so when your pieces are so short and so large like this, if you add noise in here, you will get some folding in on itself. So let me just show you that just so you can see. If you add some late noise in here, you're going to get a little bit of folds and creasing in there. So we don't want to do anything too extreme here, but you can have some small amounts in there that will help it start to look a little better. We're going to go ahead and go back to the skin tab, and we're going to adjust the seam in this one. It's kind of hard to see with it backlit. I'll move the light for you. So up here, I've got a little crevice in there, and that's what this smooth inner is going to be. So you can actually puncture that if you'd like it to look like a split, which is actually kind of fun in this case. I'm going to give it a little bit of... or you can fill that all the way out if you don't want that. You want it to look like one solid trunk there. The best thing for this scenario, because we want all of these branches sections to kind of look different now, is to add just a little bit of variance in each of these places. And and there we go. And so right off the bat, we've got no displacement on here, and we've got a lot going on down here. And so we kind of ended up with these large chunky areas. I'm gonna try to fix that by adding a little bit of variance as well. I'm just gonna switch up what side's doing what, maybe add just a little bit on the other side as well, so we can get some differences. And for that spread, if you want them to be different as well, you can take one side across the tree if you'd like to do it that way. And it seems to be that. Might even switch up the balance on these guys just a little bit. Oh, and we got a little twist there. I finally got something moderately unique looking. We are going to hit save real fast so we can keep going. And it's probably going to look a little different going forward. Let's go ahead and add some displacement. We're going to do the exact same thing we did here, where we pop it out, but we make sure that it's looking at the material so that it's got the ins and outs here. Actually, we just painted part of this. The displacement map I got originally from a tiled bark wasn't too unique, I guess, and so I just painted some stripes and some dots on that guy. We are going to add just a little. Go ahead and shape these guys. I want to keep these pretty chunky all the way up. You can see we kind of got a little smaller there, so I'm going to go back to the skin tab and just kind of repeat some of the shaping steps that we did for our first trunk. Just going to expand one side and maybe spread these guys out for sure. And because I want these to really branch out at this point, these guys are going to get a lot longer. We're going to go ahead and put spine length on there, and if you use this percentage of apparent here, you just kept in mind that you have a little short stubby thing that you just made, so the numbers might seem a little awkward for you. Since we are still on the main lower trunk area, it's perfectly fine to just use the absolute length here to keep your structure kind of the same. This tree is very round, and it's got like a lot going on at the top. So what we would do here, let's bring our picture back up, is I use shape control in our other tree. We're going to do just a little bit of shaping here. We kind of focus on the trunk for today. But we want to keep this nice crown canopy, I guess is what we're going here. And these main branches are the ones that are going to hold that shape for us. So about right here, I want to leave room in there for all of the other branches to come out and all that. I want to show you real fast, if you were going to add some more branches in here, you can do this one of two ways. So I've got an absolute on here with 0, so I don't have any branches coming off of this tiny section. So it's going to be easier to control with your curves if you actually just now and set them to not extend, and change up our first and last on these guys so that they have straight up, and then these guys coming off of the middle branches are pointing straight out. And so if you're working from a curve system, if you have these on separate, like if you have these to extend and this is your only section here that you're controlling, versus having to control over the curve the extension and the side tubes that might be doing something to rabbit trails coming off of there. Just making sure. And I've got a question. Can I ask you to explain meshes? And I don't quite know what you mean, so you might have to elaborate just a little bit on that. Meshes in general, or static meshes, or meshes for the leaves? I'll let you, if you come back, happy to answer that. Just need to understand what we want to go over there. So, on my loping off branches to give them some shape there, we'll go ahead and do that with these guys. I'm going to actually just taper these off a good bit, We're gonna skinny guys, so I'm just gonna take the relative out and just put a 1 in there just to make sure these are always 1. And we want to give this some shape. So we're gonna go to spine and we're gonna just add some noise on this. A little bit early and maybe a little bit of late noise. One thing here that you can do to make these you've got variance in there. You can add a little bit of this path. This is new in V8, but you can actually draw what you would like the branch to look like. So if you always want them to do a little swoopy thing or do a really big swoop near the end, you would need to do a 1 in the length. And now they're all going to do the same thing. I kind of need to make sure they are offset just a little bit and a bit of variance in there, so they're doing different things. You can do the same thing to twist. Gonna have them move around that way, but that'll give you some extra shape in there. And magnet and twist these 3 here, but we've got them as a property in V9, so we're just gonna add a little bit of variance in there. Make these look a little better. I'm actually gonna use the profile curve on these to make them have even more noise towards the end and see if we're going there. So now we've got some branches that are running into our middle branches. We don't really want that. Something you can do for that is use the interior prune to try to knock out some of those guys. The other thing you can do is make sure that you're, instead of just absolute spawning them anywhere, put them on interval, put the count on 1. And now you have complete control as to where this branch is. So what we would do is we would roll. We're going to use the position rotation. We're going to roll these guys sort of towards the outside of the tree, as these are all pointing out now. And then if we add a little bit of variance in the rotation, you'll have branches that always point outwards. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. But that will ensure that you don't have anything running into the middle. Okay, so you're just asking about the leaf mesh, and we can go ahead and do that for you now. We'll add some leaves to the tree. Just catching up on that question there, sorry about that. For Goldie James, he just wants to know how to put the leaf on the leaf mesh. If you add a leaf mesh to the actual thing here, for a cinnamon tree, you're going to be using the batch leaf, not the leaf mesh. You're going to attach it to, let's add it to our tiny ones that we just made here. And a leaf. We're going to grab this Camphor Leaf 1. If you grab the color map, it's going to bring the rest in for you. And I've got this showing up here. And hit save real fast. All right. This one here. First thing first, we want the two-sided to be on because we want both sides of this showing up. Our gloss is really dark right off the bat. I don't know why, but it brought in kind of a bad map. And the second tab over, you're gonna see cutouts and meshes. Right now I've got nothing assigned. We're gonna hit edit. And here is our leaf. You've got a couple different tick marks in here, so if you want to view it a different way, if you just want the color map in there, for example, or if you're cutting from something that's hard to see, you might want to tick one of those off so you can see a little better. We want to put our pivot point down here at the very end of the leaf. I'm going to chop off, I've got kind of a piece of this skin where it didn't cut out very good, so we're actually going to chop that off with the mesh cutout. I'm going to put that down and we're going to align the angle there. This is where we want the leaf to be able to fold. We're going to put one at the very tip and we're going to make some, make sure we're very, very close to the leaf's edge and just do a basic cutout here. Now I'm going to put a couple, I'm just going to put one for starters down the middle here, and I'm going to bring that one up and then put one directly underneath the main pivot point there. And now we've got a basic leaf. So this would probably be our medium leaf. I probably could have made a smaller leaf. So what we'll do is we'll save that out into the medium slot. We're going to add another one in the middle. This is going to let the leaf on the tip have a little bit of shape, that crossbar there, so that's strategic. And we're actually going to take out the sides there, and we're going to put them back up for the lowest leaf. Just try to make that a little smaller. All right, this one, you might see the shape of the leaf changing just a little bit because your curl is going to be a cross section now. You don't have one directly across the middle, which is probably okay for your lowest leaf. If you were working with an LOD, this would probably pop too much, and you probably would be better off making a smaller mesh. Now that we have all three saved out, we're going to click outside the box. We're going to go to our leaf and click it. And in the material tab here, which is in skin tab and in material for some reason, it's in two places, you can go ahead and select the one that we just made there, camphor leaf front, and then we've got it on the tree. And Danny answered the one from Luciano, but yes, that will be an available feature for V9. You can do painted, or you can do the procedural vertex colors. You can also export that out a couple different ways now. So that's it. Going back to Goldie Ames. I'm trying to say these screen names correctly, but hopefully that answered your question about meshes. If you are working from a static mesh, you would use the same tab. You can go to the meshes toolbar, which is this guy here. If you don't see it, you can always go to Window, Assets, and then open it up right here. So right now, if you make a mesh inside of SpeedTree, you're going to see this EBS embedded. I said that wrong, sort of funny. But you're going to see that you've made the mesh that way. If you have a mesh that you're loading in, like it's a 3D mesh or something you've gotten from somewhere else, like an FBX or an OBJ, you're going to click the ... dots to load those in. Highly recommend using the SpeedTree mesh cutout because it can do a lot more. So that's it for that. I probably would not have put leaves right there, but we can go ahead and shape these just a little bit just to show you. Yeah, you would go ahead and set your orientation up first. Right now, these come off a tree a certain way. I don't want absolute. I probably would want interval. Do a couple more than that. Let's switch it to Phyllotaxy for the sake of showing you how you would set these up. You change the length between these guys. And we really don't want opposite. We really want a couple of them coming out. And so what I'm going to do is put them on decussate. And then push them up towards the way. And then we would have them that. And then you would go to orientation and actually push these out, face different ways, because they kind of whirled around on the tree. Next thing you could do is add fold and curl into these guys, doing different things. And that's just sort of a basic leaf shaping. Obviously spend a lot more time doing with the intent of putting shape control on a tree. I would never add leaves until the very end. Let's keep going, and I'm just gonna finish shaping these up. And this bottom node depends on how big this is, or if that next set. So you can get some wonkiness in there played together in the end. If you have displacement on extremely, and you have it all the way onto the end of the branch, you might have some weirdness there. And so you can always grab the profile curve and bring it down if you're running into that problem. I didn't really have that problem. So you kind of have to play around with those as to whether or not you want to look at the height map itself, which has a nice repeat pattern in there, or whether you want to shake it up with the regular noise. Doing a variance in here will help as well. You can try to bring it down. You can add some little bumps areas in there for places on the tree where tab, and make sure that my segments are concentrated in the bottom. I probably should have put that on render scribe so you can see what is happening there. But I could grab that segment, and this is a distribution curve. So as I drop these down, I've got more down here. And that's the part of the tree that's really visible in general. So from here, we want to shape the rest of the tree. What we would do is actually go, I'm just going to use that to get some cool shapes in there. I'm actually going to use gravity to push and pull these guys out, and then I'm going to add a little bit of variance in there so they're not all doing the same thing. You got to be careful with that because they are kind of the main structure of the tree. And from here, we would add some big branches. This is just a template, so these are all just set different ways. Put this back in standard mode here. These are a little too stagnant. They're not really doing quite what we want them to do. If you were going to look at the pattern on the tree and see what's actually going on here, we have some upward bends, so that would be where we're shaping here. For these, I would probably change to just the generation style. These are too mathematical, and there's too many of them going down towards the bottom. So what I would do for this, I would put this on interval 1. I would rotate the branches. I would kind of make a point to have them pointing up, but I really want the gravity to start way down at the bottom. So we've got some ones pointing up there, and then I'm going to put a couple more on there, and I'm going to change up where they are positioned. So I'm going to change the rotation a little bit. Now they are all kind of coming in the same area and pointing up that way. I also want to change the bottom. They're just a little too fat. And our weld area is not very pretty here. We want to make sure that after this point we actually have the welds turned off, but for these I'm actually going to spread them out just a little bit and go back and do that. Right now I've got some big things there. Alright, so now that we've got that basic structure going up here, if you were going to add roots on this very, very big guy down here that has lots of displacement, you're going to find that it's hard to get the branches to weld. We're going to go ahead and add some roots for you. We're going to use the decoration generator and add the roots from this way, but if you were doing this, these are just branches. This is nothing particular, it's just a template saved out for doing roots, and so the things that it adds in there is just a branch generator, and it has them down at the bottom. So you're not seeing anything right now because our first and last are too small. I'm going to make sure we are, oops, I had 2 selected there, that's why you saw the green fonts just now. And make sure we haven't lost anybody, and then we've got our video still rolling. There we go. And okay, out there. So as you can see, we raised it. I now have some. On these guys, I've got the weld area is stretched up too tall right now, which is a cool look and it shows up on the tree. But you see that little hole right there? That's something we want to avoid. So there's 2 ways to fix that. You can add more radial segments and length segments on here, but we really just want to bring this down a little bit. So we're going to click the skin tab, and we're going to bring our upper scale down so that it blends a little better. You'll see that this is from the back of the tree cutting in, so you will have a little bit of that because there are 2 branches down here. So you're just going to have a mess down here, basically. On these guys, I have them set to bifurcation, and they are aligned with the floor. If you did that, and they're always going to hit the curves there. There's a lot of them down there. I might try to balance them out a little bit. Might try to just adding some variance in there for basic edits. Probably would spend a long time. Just zoomed into oblivion there. That happens sometimes. I spend a little bit of time making sure that it's great. On this tree, it's really just swirling down there, and it's really hard to see whether or not that is part of the ground or where the roots begin. And stuff like this where the texture gets large and wide, you would really want to start packing things onto the outside, disguise the fact that displacement might be a little bit limited in what you can stretch out, but you can add some details down in there. So the last thing we probably would do for this guy is add some knots. Might add a bunch of different things here, and I'm gonna add decorators and go to it's so funny the knot ended up there. It's supposed to be in the decorator. We're gonna add some lumps as well. As you see, it spawned in the same spot, so it covered up my knot. For these guys, we could just kind of make them a little smaller and then offset them a good bit, and they're gonna act like a little bit of 3D geometry there. I'm just gonna go nuts with these guys. So what we're gonna do is make them smaller towards the bottom of the tree. And so according to the bottom section there, I'm just gonna make them smaller down at the bottom. And then we're gonna keep the big guy at the top. And then we're gonna maybe just add a couple more down there. You can concentrate these guys, so I can say I would like them to weight towards the top, the bottom. And that will help us break up these shapes. You can do the same thing. Repeat these all up and down the tree. For the knot, you would want to add that middle texture in there. I don't have a knot texture available for this just yet, but we can add the trunk bark back in if we want, just to hide it for right now. And eventually we would switch that. The core has its own texture with the inner part there. That's why I'm adding that in there. So that looks pretty terrible because it's not a round texture. You would want more of a square, smaller texture with a knot area. Or, you know, sometimes trees do that. We can make this inner piece a little bigger and shape that up. I would kind of change up the curvature on that a little bit, maybe make it a little bigger. And you can change up the outside of the ring there by changing up the noise pattern. I don't have enough segments in there, so it's a little too jagged. So what we do is go to segment tab and make sure you have enough in the outer and the slices to match the geometry. If you pump out the displacement right here, you're gonna see this affects your knots and stuff like that. So if I put something crazy in there, you'll see these get more jagged. So if the question is for Joe real fast, I am using a 8K trunk on this actually. Texture, I made this and I didn't change the resolutions, 8192. And for Philo, yes, you can make this grow. Growth is a feature of SpeedTree Cinema. In order to do that, or to add that to any SpeedTree, to set growth and set the settings for that, you would want to wait until you finish the entire tree before you go in here and you adjust these features, which you would select growth to be on, and you'll see my tree disappeared there. Also, my leaves remained, because if you're doing a growth segment, you're going to have to change these to convert to leaf mesh. Leaf mesh is what you would want for those. You're going to construct the tree somewhat differently if you're going for growth as well. Turn the leaves off for just a second. And then just with the basic settings, you can see that I would have to do some tweaking here to get it correct. But, so I didn't have enough frames to get to the end there. And you would adjust how these actually come out in the animation tab. We'll probably do a live feed on just growth and setting those up and making sure that the settings, how to hide our twigs as they come out when you start with these big chunky guys. So that'll be a more in-depth live stream for a different time, and probably a different tree. I'm gonna turn that off right now and you'll see the rest of the tree. Wraps up everything I wanted to show you for setting these splits up and for building that way. It's really such a basic concept. I don't know why I thought it was gonna stretch out a little longer, but hopefully that helps. And we do have another more fact heavy. I don't know what to call our other tutorial. We have a tutorial specifically on, I think that kind of wraps up what we wanted to cover break, and then we'll be back. And I actually forget what our live stream is, so you'll find out. There we go. I go back in there. I don't have the AO computed anymore, so you can see that down here's not as pretty as it could be. Out a little bit. You can fix that by going to spine and going down to your noise and smoothing it out a little bit, and that will help our jagged edge. And if I wanted to, I could add more polys, but I really don't because this tree is ginormous. And that's one thing that I got going there. And we really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the coming weeks. So, bye! My microphone was off. I'm back just real fast to answer your question about modeling without textures. Yes, you can make the entire shape of a tree, and probably if you're struggling with slow compute or loading all those things, if you have a lot of textures, that's the way to go. I typically don't bring in all those textures until the very end. Also, if you're working on multiple trees and you already have the textures loaded in, just save that file, and then when you start a new species, do a save as and work in the same folder, and you won't have to re-import and do all of those hard steps, because the texture parts definitely take a little bit longer. If you check back a couple of models, like we've been doing lots of texturing and lots of just PBR adjustments on our past streams, so check those out. Thanks!